Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for our webinar, Programmatic Audio, How to Strike a Chord with Your Audience. My name is Amanda Benavides, and I'm part of the marketing team here at StackAdapt. And with that, I'd like to hand it over to our presenters to introduce themselves.
Thanks, Amanda, and thank you to all of you for joining today's webinar. I'm super excited to be co-hosting this presentation, so I'll be kicking off with a brief round of introductions. My name is Lucy Chang. I'm one of the sales managers on the EMEA team, and I know what you're all thinking. I have a very posh English accent, but don't let me fool you. I'm originally from New York and relocated to London a little over 10 months ago. I'll pass it on to you, Ryan.
Thanks, Lucy. Hi, guys. My name's Ryan. I'm one of the sales managers as well here at StackAdapt. I've been here just over a year, and I'm based in Kent, just near London.
Awesome. I imagine most of you are already familiar with StackAdapt, but for those of you that aren't, just a brief introduction on StackAdapt. We are a multi-channel DSP that offers full funnel end-to-end solutions, and we really pride ourselves on being innovative partners and treating our clients' business as an extension of ours and for providing top-level client service. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to any of the StackAdapt reps. So I'll be kicking it off with a brief overview of today's agenda. We'll start with exploring the growth of digital audio and why it's an impactful channel. Then Ryan will take us through the opportunities within programmatic audio, including targeting capabilities. We'll then move on to how to execute an audio strategy, and we'll wrap it up with a brief Q&A. So to start, I think the big question is, why is digital audio even a topical conversation? And I think the answer is something that is really simple and something we all know. We all know that traditional TV, print, and radio used to be the most effective ways that marketers engage their consumers at scale. But that was before the media landscape became fragmented. But with the advent of technology, digital audio has come full circle. We see that revenue, active users, and subscriptions in digital audio are growing worldwide. And as a result, marketers and advertisers are starting to pay attention and increase their presence with digital audio. When you take a closer look at music streaming, which is just one subset within digital audio, the compound annual growth is expected to be close to 15% by 2030 worldwide. That's actually an impressive number and is really driven by some of these more popular cloud-based platforms like Spotify, which is just one of the many publishers we do work with. When you look at audio spend from the lens of a marketer, these are also some really impressive stats. The UK alone leads the way in total digital audio spend in 2021 with over 225 million euros. But this is not just a phenomenon in UK alone. We know this is a burgeoning channel across EMEA because Europe as a whole has spent close to 700 million euros in just 2021. And if you take a deeper look at year-over-year growth comparing 2020 to 2021, we saw that Ireland leads the way with the most growth in ad spend with a triple-digit increase. But again, this is not isolated to just a few countries in EMEA. If you look at this chart and the countries below Ireland, from Slovenia to Turkey, all these countries experienced a double-digit growth in ad spend, bringing the European average to over 51%. So it's no surprise, or actually might be a surprise to some of you, that audio is actually outpacing other ad formats, including social video, because it's a truly immersive experience. And the other leading contributor to that is because the average consumption time in audio is increasing year over year. By 2024, the expected average time spent per day with digital audio is close to an hour and a half. This is really key and impactful because it lends itself to an extremely valuable audience. These audiences are electing to tune in and engage with this content, lean in a less cluttered environment for more cut through. The other reason why consumption is up is because there's a plethora of content now available, from audiobooks to music streaming to podcasts. I'll now pass it on to Ryan, who will take us through how to effectively target these audiences.
Perfect. Thank you, Lucy. So the opportunity with programmatic audio. The exciting thing I find with audio in general is it's just a very immersive experience, and that comes with a lot of different things, which I'll go in a few slides. So you see a few key points here. Highly targeted ads. So whether you guys want to target by gender, age, demographics, location, you can make the creatives very personalized. You can have really highly targeted ads. You can also reach a desired audience. There is a slight myth with audio that some of you might think it skews to a younger audience, because when you think of audio imagery, you tend to think of music streaming such as Spotify, which obviously, you know, it is one part of a bigger audio landscape. But because there's some amazing podcasts and radio stations and so forth, it means there's a whole host of audiences you can reach and not just that younger demographic. And lastly, when you're thinking about audio, think of it like CTV and video. It's very much top of the funnel brand awareness. So to start that journey at the top of the funnel to get them leads coming in, this is where audio be best placed. So anything for awareness and you want to get your brand messaging across, audio is a really good place to start. And why should audio be part of your strategy? You'll see there's multiple different reasons here, and there's actually a lot more than this, but this is just to give you a selection. So when I think about audio, it's really exciting because take yourself as a user, you're listening to a podcast, an example, you're switching off, you've got no distractions, and you're totally engaged on the content. So now as an advertiser, if you can insert your advertising message within that, it just adds to the immersive experience the consumer's already experienced in that time. So it's an amazing medium for that sort of thing. In terms of share of voice, you can help move the needle if you're trying to increase brand awareness over other brands. You can do listen level targeting, so you really have that one-to-one connection with that consumer, which is really important to get that personalized message across. It's great for storytelling, so very similar to video. Audio, typically duration-wise, you'll probably see between 15 and 30 seconds. So it gives you ample time to tell a really nice story towards the brands and have some really great messaging in there. You get access to premium publishers. So as audio has matured over the last few years, there's more publishers that are monetizing their own inventory, which means us as a user getting more premium content, which then for an advertiser perspective, you can advertise on some really premium content itself. On the go listening, so something really interesting about audio, it's not something where you're tied to a household and you have to watch it on your desktop or laptop. Audio is very flexible in the way you can listen to it, whether you're commuting on a train, going for a jog, it makes it very flexible in the ways you can interact and engage with users. Quality and control, so like I say, quality inventory out there, and from the advertising perspective, you get full control of that, whether it's the attribution, the performance, the transparency, you get a lot of control with this as well. And lastly, which is a really important thing, some people again might think with audio, how's it measured, how's it attributed? It's not quite like a video native display, but you can still measure stuff such as impressions, completed listens, cost per completed listen, conversions, and a lot much more as well. So the attribution side of things is definitely something you can measure as well, which is great. And when it comes to different audio imagery types, you guys are all going to be aware of this, listen to the podcast today. You've got music streaming, you've got podcasts, you've got digital radio. The thing that to point out here is these are three completely different environments. To give an example of each, music streaming could be someone on their fitness routine in the morning going for a daily jog. Podcast could be you're commuting on your train, you've got your earbuds in, you just want total silence, that 45 minutes an hour, just to tune in to really premium content or your favorite podcast. And digital radio might be a consumer in the morning that's got kind of a background noise of digital radio while they eat their breakfast. So it's also important that when you're thinking about advertising audio, think about, is it music streaming, podcast, and digital radio? Because that will also dictate your messaging depending on the audience you're trying to reach. And when it comes to digital listening in general, it's the usual sort of stuff you might find across channels in terms of tablet, web, and app and so forth, where you can find audio. There's a couple here that are really interesting. So these days now, when you buy a new car, you'll find that you have software in there such as Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, which means it's finding new ways to connect to that consumer when they're going around their daily commute to work or maybe a journey or a holiday and so forth. You've also got smart speakers, which is definitely a market that's tiny at the moment in terms of the inventory available. That will no doubt grow in the next 2 or 3 years, but that's a really exciting and emerging channel that people can take advantage of hopefully in the next few years as well. And then when it comes to audio ad placement, audio is pretty identical to video in all honesty. You can have the ads inserted pre, mid, or post roll. And for any of you guys who don't know what pre, mid, or post roll is, that essentially means before the content starts, during, and after. And in terms of recommended sizes, you'll see down the bottom there if you've got really good eyes. Usually it's 15, 30 seconds, and 60 seconds. The main inventory you tend to be able to buy and get the most placements is 30 seconds. That tends to be what most publishers offer. So as a good starting point, I'd always recommend 30 seconds, and then adding on to that, you can also add in 15 and 60 seconds as well. Perfect. So now getting started with your audio strategy, and we come into more of the targeting capabilities and what we can do from a DSP perspective. So the first thing to say here is you get essentially 15 to 30 seconds to deliver the audio message to your consumer of your choice. So there is no point making that message very convoluted and long and trying to get all your USPs into one message. Make it really nice and clear, simple to the point, and just make sure that users come away knowing exactly what you guys do as a brand and what story you're trying to tell. Even though audio typically isn't used, like I say, for prospecting and lead gen, you can have call to actions in there. So very similar to display, where you make it very prominent at the end so they know to click it. With audio, when you're actually having the audio advertising itself, you want to make it very clear that they need to download the app or call this number and so forth. So you can have CTAs, but again, to the first point, just make it really clear. The third one is, because this is immersive experience and a user's maybe in the middle of a podcast, they've now about to listen to your advertising content, it's important that you don't just have a voice on that and you try and integrate some music and sounds to really add to that experience. And essentially what we're doing, if you're adding the music and sounds and making it more engaged and interesting for the user, you're kind of creating that emotional connection with them. So they're more likely to remember your brand in terms of brand recall going forward, and they're more likely to engage with it as well. Stick to a conversational friendly tone. So again, you can just have a very robotic or mundane tone. For example, you wouldn't want me in audio, you want someone a bit more upbeat. However, one thing I would suggest, which we've seen work well in the past, is why don't you have people that are customers of yourself that maybe they record the audio to make it a little bit more personalized. You could either look at brand ambassadors if you work for university or college or something like that. So again, to make it more personalized. Or, and this is something we can even access through our Create Studio, you could look to utilize voiceover actors who are very much the perfect fit for this sort of content. And lastly, again, it doesn't really differ to your normal channels really across anything programmatic, but make sure the audio ad isn't fatiguing as time goes on. So you don't want to be playing the same audio ad as a month's pass. You want to keep it fresh and up to date. And one big benefit you can do, especially in StackAdapt, is we can A/B test. So test different audio creatives, see which ones are performing the best, and this can help inform and optimize your decisions going forward for your future campaigns. Perfect. So companion banners is something we released a couple of months ago, and it's a great addition to when you're uploading your audio creatives. One thing I will say with companion banners, not to be misconstrued here, audio is still a channel you wouldn't necessarily want to drive clicks from because it very much is a brand awareness piece. However, if you do want to drive clicks, companion banner is a good place to start because it makes it known to the advertiser, the brand, the logo, the messaging, and it makes it more likely for them to click if that's something you want to achieve. But ultimately, you'll see some reasons here on the right-hand side why companions are great. But for myself personally, if you have a companion banner with an audio content that appears on their phone, if they happen to be looking at it, it just adds to the professionalism, the story, and ultimately the messaging of the brand. So if you're going to run an audio campaign, I definitely recommend having a companion banner as well. Perfect. And also, when it comes to audio, again, this might be a misconception. People think, well, audio is a great channel, it's brand awareness, but it's very limited in terms of what it can do from a targeting perspective. But in all honesty, that couldn't be further from the truth, because you can still utilize 90% of what we can do in the platform at this moment anyway. So whether it's first-party data, either from the Pixel or uploading CRM data, build lookalike audience from it, you can overlay third-party segments. So for example, we have access to over 308,000 behavioral and demographic segments. So if you want to find a very specific or deterministic audience, that's something we can do. You can list at custom segments, whether that's a browser audience, IP addresses, location. It's another layer we can add on. Also, weather targeting, this went live about 6 weeks ago, and this is one of our dynamic creative optimization pieces, which we'll be releasing more on. But again, with an audio ad, you can dictate the weather. So if the temperature outside is X or the weather condition is Y, then that can show an ad based on these criteria as well. And lastly, if you want to get very granular, you can type by device, whether that's mobile, tablet, and so forth. So many different options to targeting, and this makes it more exciting as a channel when you're running your campaigns. Excellent. So when it comes to audio and how it fits into that whole multi-channel approach, audio currently is one of 6 channels we have available. So you can see there we've got video, in-game, which we released recently, connected TV, display native, and we've also got digital out of home, which hopefully should be going live in the next couple of months, which we can keep you updated on. So what that means is, from your perspective, when you're going into the platform and running campaigns as an advertiser, you've got access to all these channels, and it means that you're not having to log into different platforms to access these. You can do it in one place. And the great thing about audio, it can integrate with all these different channels, and that's all because of our identity graph. So with our identity graph, there's 2 things we collect, but 3 in general. So I'll kind of give you the story from the beginning. Every time we've been on users this auction, we collect 3 identifiers. We collect the cookie, device ID, and IP address. 2 great benefits of this. Number 1, when that cookie is eventually deprecated in 2024, because that's now been pushed back, we are perfectly set up to be able to combat that, in the sense that we still have a device ID and IP address to work off and identify and target as users. When it comes to audio specifically, you'll see here, these are two that we collect, device ID and IP address. And then what this allows us to do is from a cross-channel targeting perspective. To give you an example, if you're running an audio campaign, you're targeting a listener that listens to the Spotify app, we can then take that user and retarget them with a native display video ad and so forth. So what that immediately does, it takes it very much from a brand awareness campaign, which was what the first point of the campaign was. You can very quickly turn that into prospect and retarget afterwards. And that's all because of the cross-channel targeting. You've also got a few other points here, so you can do intersection audiences, and from the attribution perspective, you can look at footfall traffic, which I know Lucy's going to speak about as well now. So there's many different ways you can use it, and I'll definitely recommend the cross-channel aspect because it's only going to help performance of your overall campaigns. I'm going to pass over to Lucy now, and she's going to talk a little bit more attribution.
Thanks, Ryan. So what good all this targeting be if you can't measure attribution and report back on it for insights and learnings? So the good news is, unlike terrestrial radio, you can track the impact of your audio campaigns in the same manner as your other programmatic buys with metrics like cost per completed listen. This data really opens up the ability to connect ad exposure to real-world results. And the other benefit of running programmatic audio within StackAdapt is that we're partnered with some leading attribution providers like Cubic, Surfside, and Upwave, so you can measure footfall attribution, sales lift, and brand lift. This gives our marketers the ability to really measure the impact of audio across the consumer decision journey. So when it comes to executing an audio campaign with StackAdapt, you can access a multitude of partners through the open market via our run-of-network packages, but equally, you can also create private marketplace deals targeting specific publishers, genres, playlists, and even moods. I also quickly wanted to take you through StackAdapt platform benchmarks. When looking at EMEA alone, we have an audio completion rate of about 95%, and in the UK, it's even higher at 97%. So when you're thinking about adding audio to your programmatic mix, audio as a standalone channel is effective on its own. But as Ryan mentioned, it's truly impactful, and the true beauty of it comes out when you're layering it with other channels for increased unique reach, retargeting capabilities, so that you can really capture your audience wherever they may go. So to sum it all up, digital audio is still a burgeoning channel when you compare it to the likes of display and video, but it's growing rapidly, so it presents a really exciting opportunity for marketers. And running a digital audio programmatically is highly versatile because of all the options you have, from targeting to measurement. And again, it goes back to capturing your audience wherever they may go. And Ryan brought up a really great point that having it in one DSP allows you to have it in one platform, so you're not going in and out of platforms and comparing different metrics. And last but not least, the beauty of audio assets themselves is that you can effectively relay your message to your audience in a clear, concise way, in an immersive experience with less clutter and more cut through. And if you ever need support in creating audio assets, please feel free to reach out to your StackAdapt rep, because we have a brilliant creative studios team that can absolutely support in consulting or creating audio assets. So with that, Ryan, I would like to thank you all for spending your lunch hour with us and for being great partners of StackAdapt. Amanda, I'll pass it on to you to lead some Q&A. And I just want to say that if we don't get to all of your questions, we will follow up with an email.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Ryan and Lucy, for that wonderful presentation. So we'd now like to jump into the Q&A portion of the webinar and open up the floor to any questions. So as a reminder, if you have any questions, please place them in the questions box of the GoToWebinar panel. So it looks like we're getting some questions in through now. So let's tackle these ones here. Okay, so first question, do you have any services to help create audio ads? So we have a lot of clients who don't know how to start, but want to dive into audio.
Yeah, Brian, I can take that one. So just take a step back. If you're not familiar with our Creative Studios team, I encourage you to reach out to your StackAdapt rep, because it is an invaluable resource that we do offer as a complete value add. There are some campaign minimums you may need to reach depending on what you're looking for. But specific to audio, we do offer a multitude of support. So first and foremost, if you have assets that you want us to be consultants on, we can easily do that. But if you don't have any assets at all, we can do things like audio scripting, audio post-production. We have access to a AI voice generator, and we can also source out voiceover actors and do the whole recording ourselves for your clients.
Perfect. Okay, next question. In general, what's the best length of time for an audio ad? Should we stick to the shortest time possible that you mentioned?
Yeah, good question. I think a good starting point would be 30 seconds. And the reason that is most publishers tend to have that available ad slot in terms of inventory. 30 seconds tends to be most popular. So starting off, I would say 30 seconds. And then as you get more content in terms of duration, you can add 15 and 60 seconds. But if I was to pick one, it'll definitely be 30 seconds.
Perfect. Okay, next question. Could you please let me know how we can measure the performance of audio ads? So in StackAdapt, will we be able to see which audio ads and where the conversions came from?
Yeah, so as mentioned, there's lots of different metrics like cost per complete listen, ACR, quartile AC, which will also inform any sort of quartile retargeting messaging that you might do. But as Ryan mentioned, it also can be you can also track conversions, and it works similar to CTV. We essentially would put a pixel on the conversion point, and then when a conversion pixel is fired, we'll trace that back to some sort of combo of IP, device ID, or cookie, and then we'll match that to where we've served an impression on those identifiers. And you also do have full transparency in terms of reporting as well.
Great. Okay, so next question. Do we need to lock in any deals, or can we launch ads via self-serve with StackAdapt?
Yeah, it's a great question, and that's completely your choice as advertised on the platform. So whether you want to have a private deal with, say, Spotify, you can do that, or whether you want to have it open market like normal Programmatic, you can do that as well. So the choice is yours. But yeah, we have access to tons of private deals with all these different publishers, and we have a separate inventory team that can actually help and set up that private deal for you, whether that's guaranteed, preferred, or even private marketplace. But if you want to just run the normal open market stuff, we can do that as well.
Fantastic. Okay, next question. What is your radio offering like? What stations can I access?
So that's a really great question, and we have some exciting updates to share. At the moment, we do have access to radio stations throughout EMEA. The scale is not crazy large at the moment, but the exciting part is that we're imminently integrating with AdsWizz, which will give us inventory to Acast, Octave, Bauer stations, Kiss FM. So that should be released really shortly by the end of the month. So stay close with your StackAdapt rep, and they can provide some transparency in the radio station scale there.
Perfect. All right, next question. Can you control the delivery and frequency across different audio apps or platforms?
Yeah, the short answer is yes. So it's no different to any other programmatic channels, in all honesty. So in terms of where the ads are being delivered, going back to Lucy's point earlier, you have all transparency of all the publishers that we serve on, including SSP partners. So yep, 100%. And in terms of control, you can pause and put stuff live as you please. So yeah, you get full control and you get full access where it's been delivered on. So it just depends on what you're looking for.
Perfect. Okay, so next question. Do you offer any dynamic creative optimization in audio? So for example, for a specific town, city-based, or weather triggered, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a dedicated solutions team that specializes in DCO capabilities. So all of those geolocation, weather triggers, that's all able to be used to serve ads.
Perfect. All right, another question here. Are we able to A/B test audio ads?
Yes, absolutely, and we'd highly recommend it. So yep, you can do that within the platform. It's very easy to do, and we can have an account manager that takes you through that. And I'd highly recommend that, because if audio is a new channel that you're exploring as an agency or a brand, then definitely do this, because the more A/B tests we can do, the better it's going to inform our decisions going forward. And with any good marketing strategy, it's all about testing. So whether it's testing different channels and creatives, we'd highly recommend that. And like I say, very easy to do, and we can even give you training on how to do that.
Perfect. Okay, next question. Can you report back on where my ads were shown? So for example, the amount of impressions on a specific inventory?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we're really proud of at StackAdapt is the level of transparency and control that you have from not only a supply source level, but on a domain level. So that still holds true for audio. You can see that you ran, I'm making up 25 million impressions on Spotify versus 100 on TalkSport, so TalkSpot rather. So you do have a full transparency in that, and you can access that reporting yourselves within the platform.
Great. Okay, another question here. Can you put a toll-free number on the ads? So to what degree across each demo or platform or apps?
Can you repeat that? Sorry, can you put a
toll-free number on the audio ads?
Oh, I see. Yeah, so that could form part of your CTA if that's something you'd like to do. That's absolutely fine. I suppose the thing that we just need to bear in mind is how you would track that offline. So if someone was going to call that, how can you attribute that back to audio? But by all means, if that's your call to action, you can have that, or it's download an app. So yeah, you can include in your content. Just please bear in mind, I suppose, more the attribution side of things.
Awesome. Okay, another question. We have a bunch of questions here, so we're gonna tackle perhaps this last one, but as mentioned, we'll follow up directly with you after the webinar in case we didn't answer your question today. So are there any digital best practices for audio ads versus standard radio ads?
That's interesting. I've never worked in traditional radio, so I wouldn't know. I would say, going back to Ryan's point, I think running 30-second inventory is key. I think people often think in video, shorter is better. But the other beauty of a podcast is that our inventory is non-skippable. But I'm happy to go back to our partnerships team and inventory team to see if they have any best practices that we can share with you. Whoever that asked that.
And I think just to add on to Lucy's point, when you think about radio, it's very much a broader generic audience you're targeting. Whereas with digital, because you can hone into more podcasts, radio and streaming, it's something to bear in mind that your messaging will probably need to be a bit more tailor-made and specific. So yeah, I would just say radio tends to be traditionally a little bit broader. So if you can hone in on the personalization of who you're targeting, then I think that will be the big difference, I think.
Awesome. Okay, so that concludes the Q&A for today. And I'd like to thank Ryan and Lucy once again for the presentation today. So that concludes our webinar for today. Thank you all for attending. We hope you found this session both informative and insightful. So we'll be sending out a follow-up email with a recording to all registrants. Please don't hesitate to reach out with any other questions you might have for us. Thanks again for joining, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks.
Thank you.